I'm going to start with a little bit about why we would do this work. So what is it we're looking for? What is it that we get from this work? You know, we're all looking for life to improve in some way or other. So I'm just going to share my screen so you can see what that's what we're looking at here, what's going to be revealed more and more. And it's probably worth saying at this point that what I'm sharing here isn't new. This is a remembering, a rediscovering, a realizing. So it's coming back into the fore, something that has always been there and that we've always known, but that's been hidden. So trust that you already know this, it's already here, and all we're doing is showing it more and more. So let me share my screen then, and I can talk about what we come to realize through this work. So these 4 areas are what we come to see more and more as we keep exploring in this direction. The first one, that we're designed to return to clarity. Our system has a natural buoyancy, there's a natural ebb and flow. And we've previously, until now, worked really hard to try and make things be a certain way. And what we find with this work is that we start to realize we don't need to work so hard at it. There is a natural buoyancy, and actually that buoyancy is more able to do its job when we stop trying to get psychologically involved. The second one then, our innate brilliance is a reliable, universal capacity for realization, learning and change. So really, in fact, all of this that I'm talking about is reliable and universal. It goes back to that point before about, we already know this is already in us. This is already who we are. And all we're doing is remembering it. All we're doing is revealing what's already available. And some of those key elements are this fact we have a capacity for realization, for fresh thinking, for new ideas, for creativity. We have a natural capacity for learning, and we have a natural capacity for change. And the more we look to the work that I'm doing here with you, the more those things just start to happen easily, effortlessly. The third one then, who we think we are is not who we really are. So we're going to be seeing, what is it in our experience that is not true? What is it about us that we've believed to be true, but which isn't actually true, and which in fact is hiding who we really are? It's part of what's covering over our innate brilliance. And that it's in the seeing of that again that our brilliance gets revealed. And then the fourth part, our experience of life is created inside out. So it really looks like the world causes us to feel everything that we feel. And what I'm inviting you to in this exploration is to see that the idea of who we think we are, our conceptual mind, is actually creating a whole bunch of suffering over the top of loads of experiences. And as we look to see that, again, the natural system sorts this out. It clears away the thinking that's getting in our way. It clears away the thinking that's holding us back or using energy where it's not needed. And so then we operate more in flow with what's going on, with where things are now, rather than being caught up in thinking and creating a more difficult experience than we need to have. So let me stop sharing that one there. So that's what we're going to see more and more of as we go through this work. And to have that conversation, to help you see where we're navigating and how we're going to look there, I'll just show you this metaphor of the river. Now, this is one that you might have already seen. If you've been reading my blogs or you've been on the newsletter, you'll have seen or heard me talk about this. So this idea of the river is what I use to describe our whole experience of life. And let's start down here in the content. So this is where we've been hanging out most of our lives. We've been in the content of what's happening, who's here, who's doing what, when's it happening, how's it happening, and essentially, you know, busily moving around in that space, moving chess pieces around to try and make them line up the way that we think they should be. And there is an element of change that can be made there, but it's limited. And because it's constantly changing there, if you imagine the bottom of a river where it's so complex, there's a lot going on, there's a lot to navigate, it's hard work. making change happen from there. And actually, we've got a very limited capacity there to make anything really substantial happen. So what sometimes then occurs to us in our learning, and what we then come across in our learning, is the chance to move further upstream. So we start working on our sandbank of self. We start saying, right, well, my experience of life is coming from my feelings. So we can then start to see, yeah, when I feel bad, it creates really bad stuff in the content. And we can see that our thinking and our feelings are really intertwined in that. So if I think negative stuff, I have negative feelings, and negative stuff happens in the content. So what our development has then sometimes taken us to is to try and fix that thinking at the level of the sandbank. We've tried to get the right thinking and therefore have the right content. And although we can have an element of success with that, what I'm going to be pointing you to is where that success really came from. Because it looks like the success came from working really hard at our thinking. But if you consider that for yourself, there are probably times where you actually found you could easily shift your mindset and easily shift your behaviors. And other times where it felt like you had to work really hard to like keep repeating, I am good enough, or I am capable, or I can make this happen, and the effort required of that, and that didn't work. So why is it not consistent? You know, what's been going on with that? And that's why we come to look at what we're talking about here, which is the innate brilliance at the top of the river. That's where change has always come from. Any transformational change, any significant change in actions or behaviours downstream has always come from that innate brilliance. The realisation, the fresh thinking, the source of everything, and it's constant. This isn't something that comes and goes like the content or like the sandbank of self. The innate brilliance is a permanent feature. And the more we look to that, the more we see we can rely on it, and the more we get those aspects that we talked about on the previous page. So what we'll be exploring is that dynamic dance up and down the river. We'll be using the content of experience and the sandbank of self as ways to access seeing the innate brilliance, as ways to understand the whole mechanism that's happening. And then when we understand that, we can work in alignment with it, instead of what we have been doing, which is generally working inadvertently against it and making our lives harder than they need to be.